Hello, math students. Welcome to Module 1, Ratios and Unit Rates. And we are starting our third lesson. The name of this lesson is Solving Problems by Finding Equivalent Ratios. The goal for today. Today we are going to learn the difference between a part-to-part ratio and a part-to-total ratio. We will also continue working with equivalent ratios. The question that I want you to be thinking about in this lesson is, what is the difference of a part-to-part ratio and a part-to-total ratio? So that's what hopefully you'll be able to answer by the time we finish our lesson today. So let's take out our pens and look at the things to learn. We're working with things to learn with our first task. The DMVs register cars and trucks with license plates. In August, there were 192 registrations purchased for cars and trucks. The ratio relationship is, for every 5 cars registered, there were 7 trucks registered. So that's our, remember, our ratio relationship uses those words for every, and there are, were, is, okay? So for every 5 car registered, there were 7 trucks registered. So, part-to-part ratio means that you are looking for the parts that make up the entire situation. So it says cars and trucks are both vehicles. So in this scenario, the cars is one part, the trucks is the other part, and then together they make up vehicles because they both are vehicles, and so that's where you get your total from. So part, total. Or part, whole. You may have heard of it called before as well. So trucks is a part, trucks is a part, cars is a part, and they're both vehicles, so that's the total. Okay? So a part-to-part ratio for this task would be 5 to 7. Cars to trucks. 7 to 5, trucks to cars. So remember, we talked about this a little bit briefly earlier, that the order matters. So if the number is first, it's talking about the first word. So 5 represents cars and 7 represents trucks. And it was listed second, so it has to be associated with the second word. Whereas over here, we have 7 is the first, so we go to trucks, and 5 is listed second, so it goes to the second. Okay, so order does matter. You have to remember that. So part-to-part ratio for this task would be 5 to 7 cars to trucks, or 7 to 5 trucks to cars. Okay, part-to-total ratio in this task, the ratio would be 5 to 12, again, using 5, and 5 is representing cars, whereas 12 is representing the total, okay? And then you look at this one, and you get 7 to total, so 7 trucks to 12 total, because there are a total of 12 vehicles, okay? And so how do we read it again? In this task, the ratio would be 5 to 12 cars to total, or 7 to 12 trucks to total. So hopefully that wasn't too confusing, but I was trying to get you to remember that order matters. Okay, tape diagrams. We can use tape diagrams for the part-to-part relationship. And remember that the tape diagram is just a piece of tape sectioned into the number of pieces of the item. So we have a piece of tape right here, and it's broken into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because our ratio was for every 7 trucks, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars. Okay? So trucks is 7, cars is 5, so 7 to 5. How many equal sections are there? All together, how many equal sections are there? Well, count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So the answer of how many equal sections are there is 12, okay? And then we remember that trucks, there are 7 squares, and cars, there are 5 squares. So that's using a tape diagram to show us the registered vehicles. Okay? All right, so now let's look at the next page and see what it's asking us to do. So it says, if there were 192 vehicles, 192 vehicles. So remember, vehicles represented the total amount, remember? Okay, how can we use the tape diagram to determine the value of each section? Oh, well, that's not horrible, because all we have to do is we have to remember that the whole thing is the total, and they just told us that that total was 192. So how do you think, I want you to look at that for a minute, if this whole thing altogether equals 192, how do we figure out what goes in each square? Because remember, the squares are the same size, same shape, so they have to be the exact same value. They're the same size and the same shape, and they hold the exact same value. So how do we know what goes in each square? If you're thinking to yourself that you need to do some division, right on, okay? We actually have to divide. So what do you think we're going to divide by? Well, I'll give you a hint. I used purple for a reason. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You are correct. So 192 divided by 12. And I am going to show my work because I know that my teacher makes me show my work even if I can do it in my head. So 12 does not go into 1 evenly. 12 goes kind of into 19 better, but it only goes one time. And then we subtract. 9 minus 2 is 7. 1 minus 1 is 0. I don't put the 0 because I don't like to be confused with another number that's not necessary. Bring down the 2. And now I'm looking at this going, what's a number that I know when I multiply it by 2, what number multiplied by 2 gives me a 2 in the ones place? I'm thinking 6. So let's try a 6. 6 times 2 is 12. Regroup the 1. 6 times 1 is 6 plus 1 is 7. Aha, I found it right away. All right. So I now know that 16 goes in each box. So go back over here to our tape. 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, 16. Why did I do 16 again? Because all tape diagrams are the same shape and same size, so that means they have to have the same value. Oh, okay, so that's not too hard. Now, what I have to do is answer this question. How many cars? Oh, well, that's where I go and I look directly at the cars. And directly at the cars is only this section of my tape diagram. So I count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to take 16 times 5. And again, show my work, 16 times 5. That's 30. Regroup the 3. 5 plus 3 is 8. So now I know there were 80 cars. Okay, that wasn't so horrible. And now we're asking for trucks. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 this time. So 16, 7 times. So I'm going to do the math over here. 16 times 7. 6 times 7 is 42. Regroup to 4. 7 times 1 is 7 plus 4 is 11. So it would be 112 trucks. All right. And so now I figured out how many of the 192 vehicles were cars, 80. How many of the 192 vehicles were trucks, 112. That was not bad, kiddos. It was actually kind of fun, especially if you love to do math like me. All right, so now I'm giving you one that you have to do on your own. That means I am not helping, okay? So it says, now try one on your own. The task says, in September, the DMV shows that for every 14 non-commercial vehicles, there are 5 commercial vehicles. Out of all the vehicles registered, 108 more of them were non-commercial. How many of each were registered? Okay, hold on. That was kind of confusing. So it says, in the DMV, it shows that for every 14 non-commercial vehicles, there were 5 commercial. So we need to set up our tapes. And the first thing that I would suggest that you do is that you need to figure out how many of each that it's asking for. And so I'm trying to pick a color that I haven't used yet to help you see it. So 14 non-commercial and 5 commercial is what it's listing. So kiddos, that's where I would start right there, is drawing those. So I would draw a tape that is 14 long, and that's your non-commercial. And then I would draw another tape that's 5 that is commercial. And then it says out of all the vehicles. So when you do your tape, you're going to circle all of them. It says out of all the vehicles registered, 108 more of them were non-commercial. Well, that makes sense. I don't want to do the tape for you, but I'm going to help you because I think some of you are going to get confused. So we're going to draw our tape. Okay. Start it out here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Keep going. 12, 13, 14. Okay, this is non-commercial, so I'm going to put NC for non-commercial. And then it said 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 were commercial. So this is C for commercial. Now, I'm going to read this part to you, and then I'm going to stop helping. It says, out of all the vehicles, so looking at both tapes together, out of all the vehicles registered, 108 more of them were non-commercial. Where on the tape is the more? Because this one equals this one, 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 this one equals this one. Uh-oh, where does the more start? So if you're saying that the more starts right here and goes to here, this is the more. Would you agree? That has to be the more. And the reason why it's the more is because, look, there's no tapes right there. And it says that 108 more of them were non-commercial. Well, this is non-commercial. So we're talking about right here. What's the value of the more? The value of the more was 108. So what we have to figure out is what value goes into each square, because remember, all the squares are the same size and same shape, but we can figure out what goes in there because it's telling you from right here to right here that those squares make 108. So remember how we did it up here? It said the whole thing was 92 and we had 12 squares. Well, this one was 108, but it's only covering from right here to right here. So what should we do to set that up? You're going to take 108 divided by what number? Hopefully you can see my drawing. I'm not going to give you any more hints because I want to see if you can do this by yourself. Okay, remember, once you find the answer, all of these tapes are the same size. So whatever your answer is, you get to write it in every box, just like we did the 16s up here. Then you will be able to see, it says use the sections of the tape to determine the size of each section. So that's what you're doing right there. And then it says how many of each kind of vehicle are there. So you need to tell me how many non-commercial there are. Make sure I spell it right. How many non-commercial there are and how many commercial there are. Okay, so how many non-commercial and how many commercial. Okay, that's your job. Okay, I'm excited for you. I think you could do it. All right, let's go back to our goal for just a minute. It says, today we are going to learn the difference between a part-to-part ratio and a part-to-total ratio. We will also continue working with equivalent ratios, which you totally are doing. What is the difference between a part-to-part ratio and a part-to-total ratio? Kiddos, that's your question. So this question and this problem need to go in the question answer section of option 2, or if you're doing option 1, then you need to fill it in right there, and you need to fill this in right here. Okay? That's all I've got for you today. Talk to you soon. Bye.